2, 1,
Action, Jake, and action!
In A Quiet Place Day 1, we have gone back to the beginning of what happened before the creatures invaded the Earth.
In Day 1, we explore similar themes to the beginning of the second film, where we watch the Abbott family negotiate this invasion. Except this time, we're set in an urban environment in New York City.
It's a completely different perspective, a different environment, a different setting, and this one is so much more devastating to witness.
We meet Samira, who is on a day trip to New York when they arrive. And she has to adjust to this new world. And on the way, she meets Eric, a perfect stranger, who she has to figure out how to survive with.
Trying to be quiet in New York City is no easy thing. An entire city of people figuring out the rules for themselves.
If we stay here, we die. The world is coming to an end, and how does one best manage the emotional roller coaster?
It feels very surreal because New York is so quiet. It feels very ominous, and you just think about survival.
It's perilous, it's fastly paced, and it's extremely quiet.
For Day 1, I wanted to find a writer-director that would come up with something totally unique. And so we found Michael Sarnowski.
John did give me a lot of freedom to create something that remains true, yet also very different from the first two movies.
With the thriller genre, there can be a formula. What Michael has done is totally dismantle that formula.
His take on the movie was, what if you had someone going through this first day and they had a unique set of circumstances that would set them apart from everyone else?
There's this other layer that Michael has added. It's bigger, scarier.
He's created an emotional roller coaster.
It does justice to the Quiet Place universe and expands upon it.
What he was able to do was absolutely wild. If anyone knows me, they know I do not like cats. I'm afraid of them. I think cats are actually just small lions. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about cats. Well, that's how I felt about cats before this movie. This is Frodo.
Hi, Frodo.
I met Nico and Schnitzel, the two cats that played Frodo in the film.
You can't have a cat in here.
Now, somehow, I love them.
I had seen both of the Quiet Place films in theaters when they came out, and they are a really special movie-going experience to watch with an audience. So I had a wonderful experience with both of those, and I just loved how fundamental and essential those stories were where you got to follow intimate character dramas while also faced with this very primal and visceral challenge of these creatures that hunt by sound, and if you make a sound you die. And I liked sort of the simplicity of that allowed you to explore really nuanced characters. So I was very excited to work in that universe.
I was drawn into this movie first and foremost by John Krasinski. I spoke to him and he told me about why he wants to tell another story in this universe. And his point was that he only wanted to carry on telling stories in the A Quiet Place universe if he could find new ways in stories that would somehow expand the universe as well as expand what the horror and thriller genre can encompass. And I love that as a mandate for going back to this place. And so he passed the baton to Michael Sarnowski, and I watched his film Pig. I was really taken by how he tackles severe material with a tenderness. And when I read the script for A Quiet Place Day One, I felt that same sensibility come across in this world where it's a bigger scale. We're in New York, there's all the spectacle of an apocalyptic film, but at the heart of it is just navigating the human relationship between these two strangers that are trying to overcome great odds.
I think there's a lot of pressure and ideas of what we could see in a prequel and how much you could expand this universe, because there's so many ways you could go with A Quiet Place. And for me, I just really had to focus on characters and finding a story that I was excited about and that I cared about, because you have to live with these characters for years and see a whole movie through their eyes. And I think finding the opportunity to really tell a unique story within this amazing universe was the thing that most excited me.
I was drawn to the central characters. I thought that they were so fully realised and very much well observed on the page. I think that something like this, with a large-scale spectacle film, apocalypse film, it could be quite easy to lose sight of the beating heart of any motion picture, which is the characters that occupy it. Mm-hmm. And I think that this film really preserves that. It preserves these two perfect strangers colliding, meeting each other and revealing certain things about themselves throughout the process of the film, as well as providing a lot of scares and entertainment and thrill. Mm-hmm. So I thought that that would be a really interesting exercise and an interesting kind of bank to try and rob, really.
It was wonderful to work with and for Michael Sarnowski. He leads a joyful set. He's very calm. I'm fascinated by how calm he remains even when things are chaotic around him. And he has this magical child quality that is infectious, right? And movie making is such a privilege, right? We get to play for a living, and sometimes we can take ourselves too seriously. And what I find with Michael is that he doesn't fall for that. He's still very much enamored by the movie making. He brings this freshness to it, a sort of childlike wonder, and the material is intense and demanding, but there's a joy with which he does it, and I loved working with him because of that.
He's a wonderful man and a brilliant leader, and a sensitive one as well. Mm-hmm. The content of the script, the themes that are explored are pretty large questions. It's about grief, it's about dependency, it's about family, it's about an unraveling of a society. What happens to human beings when all of the things that we're told are there to keep us safe disappear? These are kind of large themes and big questions. And I think it was handled in a way that was very delicate and entertaining at the same time, and it takes a rare person to be able to steer that ship. Mm-hmm. So it was lovely working with him. We had some wonderful other cast members, Jamon Hounsou and Alex Wolff, to name but a few. Yeah, we had a really lovely gang on this, and it's makes everything a lot easier when you've got some people like that involved.
Going from the original two Quiet Place movies to Day One is going to feel like a big jump in scale. You're going from a rural environment to one of the loudest cities in the world, and there's multiple creatures, so many people that are dealing with this situation, and I think it's going to feel like the next sort of level of how people are having to deal with these creatures and seeing how they initially had to learn about this. Yet at the same time, I think it really honors the roots of the franchise in being character-driven dramas that are about unique people going through this situation and how they're dealing with it. And I think in Sam and Eric, we've really found a story that feels all its own.
What do we do? Save everyone we can.
I have a plan.
A Quiet Place, Day 1.
And 3, 2, 1.
Hey, we're going to a show.
I'll go if we get pizza.
Okay, well then, yeah, we'll get pizza on the way back.
In the city.
In the city.
I think fans are going to be enthralled by the love letter that this film is to New York City.
I actually had the idea for day one when I was writing Quiet Place Part 2, because when I wrote the opening for the Abbott family going through the circumstances of the first alien invasion, I thought that would be an amazing story point to drop into the real world in New York City, arguably the loudest city in the world.
New York is an extremely loud place, so we spend the first 25 minutes of the movie kind of in New York as it is, and it's loud and noisy and there's so much life, and then being able to switch over into the kind of quiet version, the introspective version, is going to be really fun.
And it feels kind of surreal because New York is so noisy. So if it's ever not noisy, if it's ever quiet, it feels very odd and kind of ominous.
There are so many movies about New York, especially New York invasion and destruction movies. There are always these kind of iconic moments that are very much like, hey, look, it's, oh no, the Empire State Building fell over. So we kind of shied away from that stuff and tried to give more of the sense of the city after there's been kind of this pall of destruction.
Cut there.
And in one of my first conversations with John Krasinski, he mentioned to me that one of his missions with this franchise was to expand the potential for what a thriller can do, not to just keep making the same movie over and over again. He really wanted different tones and textures and themes and getting out of the driver's seat as actor, as director, and handing it over to an artist that he respects, and in so doing make it totally new, you know? I really was impressed by that.
We found Michael Sarnowski, which was incredible. I loved Pig so much, and I remember as soon as I saw that movie, I thought he was gonna be an amazing candidate to do. If he would have us, we would have him as well. And so when he jumped in, we were thrilled, and he saw his way into this story, in the framework of the story, in such a specific way that was something totally unique to him. I hadn't thought of anything like that. And he created the character that Lupita goes on to play, and it was just brilliant. It was so smart.
I'm gonna share a poem I've been working on. It's called This Place is Shit.
Oh, good.
We meet Samira at a hospice center in Long Island. She has been diagnosed with a terminal disease, and she's very bitter and angry about that.
What does a threat to humankind, the future of humanity, mean to a dying person? This genre banks on the human desire to survive. And so when that is no longer on the table for somebody, what is left?
Lupita is one of those actresses who's gonna make any single role or any single movie better. I think she's a very, very powerful actress, a very powerful presence. And I think that the idea of her character going through an end-of-life process is one that she took really seriously, and I think is one that's incredibly difficult to do. Her character doesn't use it as a crutch. It's something that it is a circumstance of hers rather than something that drives the entirety of her performance, and I thought that was so brilliant.
It's $4, and you can't have a cat in here.
It's a service cat.
Everything's kind of focused around Sam and the different people that she interacts with and how they kind of ping-pong around off of her and how that affects her little odyssey through the city. So we get to kind of lens everything through how she is seeing the world.
Lupita's like particularly amazing when it comes to silent expression. She has so much range in her face, and it's such a gift as a, photographer to be able to shoot her in these things where it's not all about talking. It's really, she says so much here and in silence. And that has been kind of maybe my favorite part of working with her, is like seeing these like quiet moments unfold just in front of the lens that, say so much without saying anything.
She's just remarkable, a consummate pro, a star, obviously, but doesn't wear it. She treats everyone with kindness and respect. I mean, I've been an admirer of her work and the choices that she's made for years. So to be able to share one frame with her is an enormous privilege, but to be able to work with her in such an intimate way during this film is a very fortunate place to be in.
I love that these films are character-driven. So for me as an actress, it was such a meal to play Samira. I think it's all too easy in a thriller or a horror film for the effects to be doing all the work.
I mean, there were two things with Lupita. One, she brought so much emotion to the character scenes and the scenes where she had to portray so many things that were going on, from terror to sadness. But then also, like, she lost a good amount of weight for this project and was very slender. And, it affects your energy levels and affects what you can do with your body. But she still, would show up for these very intense sequences and just knock them out of the park.
I knew the only way to play Samira was to lose the weight. I'd never done anything like that before, and so it was a very intimidating prospect, because the thing about losing weight, and the reason why I wanted to do it, is that there's a vulnerability that you feel in your body when you're hungry.
Action.
What I came to learn is that vulnerability is magnified tenfold when you're hungry and underweight. And so the state I was in perfectly allowed me to apply myself to her condition, because I couldn't do things at 100%.
The transformation of her character in this film was quite unbelievable, and she's transformed to really looking very frail, and I was a bit concerned, Tremendous dedication, yeah.
I also really love the silence of A Quiet Place. I don't know how many films, popular films, ask an audience to sit in silence, endure silence. And that silence ends up being quite lyrical. And it speaks volumes.
So Michael and I did a film called Pig together. We had a pig for like 4 days on the movie. It really wasn't that much. When we finished that, and it was sort of like the exhale after you kind of really finish a film. And he was like, wow, yeah, no more animals. That was a headache, huh?
I mean, the pig did an incredible job in that movie, but I was like, I'm not doing another movie with an animal. Like, it's a whole other headache of things. Like, it's an amazing discovery process, but it's also like, oh boy, it's a lot.
And then so, day one, this film, when he first sends me the script, I'm like, this is beautiful, but why is there a cat in every scene, Michael.
And I really didn't want it to be a CG cat.
And so that creates a lot of challenges, especially in a film like what we're doing.
Joe and Kim were these extremely talented animal trainers who were working with Schnitzel and Nico. Those were the two cats that we had playing Frodo.
We knew there's no way we could do this film with one cat alone. So we knew to get a close match, we would have to colour Nico. There's no way we would find a cat with exactly the same markings. So we had Nico, and we have an extremely clever colorist to colour him. And now most people find it tricky to tell the difference between the two of them. For this film, it's quite intense, and there is a lot for the cats to do. So we had 3 months full training for both of them. They both have their specialities, and they complement each other as a team great.
52 Vegas, take one. Action.
Nico was better for kind of the long movements, like if we needed, a cat running along the street.
Nico walks better on the lead. Schnitzel is the better stayer.
Schnitzel was better for like the little trick moments, like if we needed a cat pawing at the door or giving a little look.
A bus pulling into the frame next to the cat was really difficult because the air brakes would go off, and really cat didn't like the air brakes. But stuffing Nico into a viola case, sailing down a flooded subway with like waves and darkness, and he was like chilling. It was fine.
We have done, I think, like 42 days filming, and the cat has done literally every single day. So we have had a lot of stuff, mostly outside, so that's challenging with a cat. I really like the fact that Frodo is the catalyst for bringing Eric to Samira.
Animals are great judges of character, aren't they? So I think the fact that Frodo warms to Eric probably informs Sam's opinion as well. It's very interesting because in many ways Sam is a very unlikable character. This kind of futile, what's worth saving kind of outlook that she has. So I think having a cat to cuddle makes us like her a bit more.
Eric, do you have family here?
Why?
Don't you have anywhere you can go?
No.
Joe sent in an audition tape that had just all the kind of sensitivity and warmth and sadness that was really important for Eric. He's kind of traumatized in his own way, but then he also has this kind of wisdom and deep kindness to him. And Joe just kind of has a lot of that very authentically, but he's so talented and so on point with everything he does. And he's just one of those actors that you can say, like, I just needed a little more of this. And he's like, yep, I know exactly what you mean. I got it.
Joseph Quinn was the kind of actor who would step all the way in. He would make bold choices, he would throw strong balls, and you just have to be very, very present to receive and throw back.
We built the backlot set, but there are some elements that we did film in central London. There's in the kind of financial district in London called Canary Wharf, where we filmed some scenes as kind of East Midtown. We managed to close it down for 2 days in a row, and we put all of our kind of burnt, kind of twisted, mangled cars in the streets, and fire trucks and fire hydrants kind of spewing water everywhere.
The creature's turning its head towards you. The creature runs away.
When you're trying to get a whole crew to like get behind, hey, like point the camera here, there's a monster, trust me. It takes a lot of imagination on everyone's part, but it's kind of fun too to also have talented people from ILM standing there being like, yeah, that's awesome, we'll make it look really cool. You just have to kind of trust them.
Michael is just very much into the details, and it's just amazing to see how much he can keep in his head, but he's very, very good at having a clear idea about what he wants to do, but then through discussions and anything that you're sort of chatting with, he's happy to sort of change, sometimes to do with what's practically possible, but also just likes to hear what other people are thinking. On the day, we're sort of framing up, and so right at the beginning, we're sort of always talking about what we're doing. Pat's very talented and is producing some very beautiful images, which makes our jobs way easier in post. But also, Michael, he did some of his own post work in his last film himself, and so it's interesting to watch him really care about the visual effects process, care about like Is this the right way of shooting something?
You know, the irony of making these films is that the thing that is scariest to the audience is the most comedic thing to the actors.
Creature!
We were running from monsters that were invisible, obviously. Michael did manage to get like a guy on like these stilts to stand in for the monsters for some of the shots. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was just like, that is really funny. So you do have to do a whole lot of work in your mind to access the gravitas of the moment.
Action!
We've got a location that we're bringing Samir and Eric and little Frodo down some stairs into the subway, and then they round a corner, and then we bring them onto the set in the studio here. They're faced with this subway train that's kind of crashed up onto the platform. The whole area where the train should be running is actually flooded. We've built a kind of a long section of tunnel here with a ceiling piece. But this ceiling piece is on kind of computer-controlled rigs so that we can kind of adjust the ceiling up and down. So it gives the impression, as it goes lower and lower, it gives the impression that actually the water is getting higher and higher. I love making horror movies, and I know how difficult they are to create, kind of behind the scenes. But creating the environment for our characters and taking the audience with us into these spaces is so much fun.